Welcome to Failure is Progress, presented by Sweat Factory CrossFit. I am Coach Frankie Ortega.
And I am Coach Keith Barber. Join us today as we discuss everything going on inside the CrossFit space and, more importantly, what new and exciting things are happening in our Sweat Factory CrossFit gyms.
As always, thank you to all of our listeners. We appreciate the support and truly enjoy the feedback we've been receiving from all of you.
Please reach out through our DMs on Instagram. If you aren't already following us, please do so at Failure is Progress, all lowercase. And now, on to today's episode.
All right, and we're back with another episode of Failure is Progress. This is episode number 32, and I do not have Keith with me today. I have a special guest, Coach and General Manager Jen Rice. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you, Frankie. It's a pleasure to be back on the show.
Yeah, I was chatting with Keith about what our next episode was going to be, and we talked about doing something possibly on athlete etiquette, kind of similar to what we spoke about a while back when we had you. I think it was like episode 6.
It was episode 6. I remember it fondly.
Many episodes ago. But we talked about, what we want to see in coaches. We figured why not flip that around and talk about what we want to see in athletes. And Keith said, you know what, this sounds like a GM conversation. So I think it would be great if you did it with Jen. And here we are. Welcome. So where should we start?
I think in the beginning with etiquette. Isn't that one of the first things our parents teach us when we're growing up, is to have some good manners?
Absolutely. Having manners is such a nice thing.
It is. It makes the world a better, happier, more fulfilling place.
We should always open the door and welcome new people into the gym. Say please and thank you. Drop your barbells lightly.
Don't wake the baby. Set it down. Set it down quietly.
But yeah, one thing I would like to talk about, and a lot of people don't know this, maybe we don't do a good enough job of implementing it, but we do have a mission statement that Clinton Macy have implemented, and I think it would be good to kind of go over that just so everybody knows what it is. Our mission statement is to positively impact the community by creating better people, building stronger families, and empowering everyone to take control of their lives.
That's
Period.
deep.
Right? I mean, I feel that, and I definitely get that when I come to our gyms. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I took the general manager role, is to be able to pay that forward. I experienced it firsthand and wanted to be able to pay that forward to all the athletes that I get.
And I had that same experience. There's something about that Sweat Factory culture that we say we're building stronger families in the mission statement, but that family extends outside the biological family into our friendship circles and our gym family. And from the moment I walked in the door here, I felt that. And it's such a compelling part of our culture. I don't want that to ever die. So it's just nice to be reminded that it's there.
Absolutely. So taking that into consideration, as a general manager, what's one of the first things you look for when a new athlete walks through the door?
Oh, you're painting me in a corner by saying I have to keep it within the scope of the mission statement.
You don't have to keep it within the scope of that. I'm just saying, feeding off of that, knowing that that's what our total goal is, right? What's one of the first things that you see in an athlete that you say, oh, that's he's going to be awesome here. He's going to be a good fit.
Yeah,
or she.
Definitely the vibe that they put off. If they're already willing to meet people in the community when they come in, because we've got amazing athletes here who will go up to them and introduce themselves in the 5 a.m. You've got Amanda and Lauren who are not letting a new face go uncelebrated. They're talking to them and inviting them into the community. But some new people are they're a little taken aback by that. And that's probably because most gym cultures in your Globo gyms, they don't have that experience. And I know they're going to fit in so well if they are receptive to that engagement right from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that for me, one of the biggest things that I always tell people as soon as they step foot in our gym is that I just thank them for having the courage to come in. Because I remember first time I came in, it took me 8 years to get the courage to come into a CrossFit gym. And I've been athletic my whole life, involved in all kinds of sports. I've coached in the past, and still getting into a CrossFit gym was so intimidating for me. And anytime I get a new member, just having the opportunity to have them come into our gym and give us a consideration to be their new home is a big deal to me. Sometimes they are a little hesitant to come and take classes, and they may want to do PT first because they're scared of being with other athletes. Or one thing that it's kind of entertaining, but whenever I do like a gym tour and there's people lifting in the gym and they drop a barbell while that person is walking around, they always jump. But I tell them, don't be put off by that. That's part of what we do here, and you'll get used to it sooner than you think. It makes it easier if you hear like a gunshot outside to not get scared by it. But yeah, anytime someone has the courage to come into one of our gyms, I think that already sets them apart from the norm. The other thing that I love is whenever they can smile. If somebody walks in and they're willing to smile and laugh with me, I already know they're setting themselves up for success.
And you're absolutely right there. But I think the bigger takeaway is your initial reaction, that they came in the door to begin with. Because from there, we have a lot of opportunity to help them, to empower them, to take control of their lives. And that is also to take control of their mindset, to find the things to be grateful for, find the things to be happy about, and then they will be smiling. So maybe if they're not on day one, that's okay. We know that working together, we'll all get there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on the flip side of that, playing devil's advocate, which you're very good at, what is it that someone would say or do on the onset that would make you kind of consider, wow, maybe this person isn't a right fit for our gym?
It's funny you should say that, because I don't think all of our athletes realize that that's a thing. There are people that right from the start, we as general managers might say, I really respect your time, but I don't think this is going to be a good fit for you. And we try to screen that out early on, and it seems judgmental and unfair, but I really want people in this environment to get the most out of it. And people who start off with cutting off everything you say, oh, I know, I've done that before, I know.
Yep.
You might know. I believe you bring a lot to the table. Everybody has a different knowledge base. But if you can't be humble enough to hear the cues that the coaches are providing and recognize that while you may have done something previously, that might not have been the right choice, and that we're all a team here working toward a common goal. And that common goal, you might think it's strength, you might think it's fitness, it's wellness and longevity. That is our ultimate goal. Yep. In this environment. So someone who's not willing to be humble and just wants to lift the heavy things all the time and not get feedback, that's a dangerous combination in this environment. And I don't want to be responsible for the injuries that would come as a result of the inability to be coachable.
Yeah, I think that's huge. For me personally, when someone walks in the gym, it's right from the onset, whatever their goals are. If their goals are very short-sighted, I immediately know we're not going to be a good fit. When they come in and they say, I need to lose 30 pounds in the next 2 weeks, or when they come in and they just say, I want to get myself nice and toned, and they're, 400 plus pounds, like, those are all great, but I need you to be more realistic. I need you to understand this is not something that's going to happen overnight. This is an Amazon. So, for me, that's one of those things, because, again, there's a reason why we're at where we're at. We do the same things we've always done. We're going to get the same results we've always gotten. And like you said, having the ability to come in and check your ego at the door and be susceptible to coaching, be open to getting new cues or being corrected in a way you've never been corrected before is definitely important. We have a couple athletes over at Afterburn that have really taken, I would say, the whole gym by storm. Everybody who's worked out with them loves them. Their names are Kenny and Joseph, a couple of Venezuelan guys who came in, and I remember them walking in the door and saying, oh, we just want to sign up for the unlimited plan. And I said, okay, well, do you guys think you would need foundation? And they're like, we don't need foundations. We know what we're doing. And I was like, okay, so you've done, clean and jerks, you've done snatches, and they're like, we've competed, we've done everything. And to my surprise, not only can he back up everything he said, but he's the most coachable. and he is the most approachable. And everybody in the gym gravitates towards them because they're that athlete coach that you want in every gym, in every class, you know, where he's not only able to take coaching, but he's also able to spot you because you may be with a new athlete over in the corner, but he's looking over at another athlete saying, hey, why don't you try keeping your feet flat on the ground versus getting on your tippy toes? Or why don't you try making sure you've got that S curve in your back versus, you know, bending over too far on your deadlift. So he's been, Kenny and Joseph have both been great. Joseph's a little more reserved, doesn't talk too much. He just lifts really heavy for being 140 pounds. But Kenny is almost like having Aristotle in the room. It's such a cool thing. He's awesome. He's gonna make a great coach someday.
Hint, hint. You have a way of doing that with your athletes over there at Afterburn, grooming them to move up the ranks.
Yeah, we've got a great community. We've got great people. It's really nice to see those athletes. You know, we're talking about athlete etiquette, the ones that you don't have to go over these things with, right? They walk in the door and they've got the whole checklist already.
Yeah, it's instinctual.
And everybody knows it, you know, and for a lot of them, it's something that they've done their whole life, or it's something that they've done, you know, in Afterburn's case, in another country, and they've brought that over here. You know, Coach Gabriel G6 came from Brazil, and he's been coaching for 3 or 4 years, and I think he's only 21 years old. And seeing the athletic maturity that he has is impressive.
Yeah,
it's really
for
impressive. Sure. You know, and even when he takes one of our classes, he'll take the class and still take the time to allow himself to be coached, or even reach out to you and say, hey, watch me over here. You know, speaking of Gabriel's, the other Gabriel, OG Gabriel, he told me the other day, you fixed my deadlift. You know, and he's been coaching longer than I've been thinking about CrossFit. But he's like, you fixed my deadlift. You helped me add more weight. And it was just taking the opportunity to coach him, and him taking the opportunity to be coached.
Yeah, I mean, being coachable is one of the highlights of being the ideal CrossFit athlete. I was talking to Christy Hardy over here at Claremont this morning about this. I love her. And, you know, I talked to her about this because she was being the ideal athlete today. She said, is this a good workout for me to practice my kipping skills? And we worked on, instead of just doing pull-ups, we worked on specific drills throughout the workout. So she still got her metabolic conditioning and did it in a way where she was focused on not just getting her chin over the bar, but doing it well. And I won't go into detail of what that looked like in the class experience, but the fact that she was saying, I don't want to just do the workout. I want to do it well. I want to get something out of this experience. I want to get closer to that end goal. Instead of just putting in the work, doing it in an effective way. So like on the Best Hour podcast recently, that was maybe 2 episodes ago. It's a great podcast, by the way, for anybody in the gym management world or CrossFit management world. Fern on there, he said, getting shit done is addictive. And it is. If you're crossing things off your to-do list, feels great. He said, but getting the right shit done is powerful. And as an administrator, that hit me hard, that there's times where I'm not spending my time in the most beneficial way to our athletes. But I also thought of it in the athlete world. You've got 1 hour to maximize your minutes and a set number of goals you're trying to accomplish. You need to be humble, receive the feedback from your coach, get after it, and put in the work on the things you want to get better at to speed up that timeline. In this world, you're going to get better, fitter, healthier, not fatter. I mean, you're definitely doing it wrong if you're doing it that way. Fitter, healthier, happier. All the beneficial things will come in due time. But like you said, you've got to be patient. You can get them there faster if you're willing to put in a little bit more effort. And I told her I was not the ideal CrossFit athlete when I started. I remember my coach, Coach Roy over at Steel Furnace CrossFit from way back in my younger days of CrossFit. In the middle of a Metcon, he would be giving me cues. He was being a great coach. I would literally keep doing what I was doing and shake my head no and smile at him. So I felt, and we had a great relationship. I wasn't being disrespectful, or rather I wasn't meaning to be disrespectful, right. But I was being a terrible athlete. I had bad habits that took me years to correct. And if I could go back and do it over again, I would go back and do it with that intention mindset. What is my intention in this workout? Not what is my goal, not which one of my friends do I want to smash on the leaderboard, but what do I actually want to get out of this? How is it going to make me a better athlete? Because since I've adopted that in the past year or two, I've become such a better athlete. My quality of movement has become way more intentional, and I mean, I'm not going to say perfect, but like it's closer to perfection than it was.
Right. Virtuosity.
Virtuosity.
Yeah, I mean, same with me. It's always funny. I hate to bring up the topic of programming again, but so many athletes tell me, the programming here, it's not hard enough, it's not difficult enough, it doesn't challenge me enough. And we've had these conversations. I've been doing most of my workouts are at our blue level in our level method programming. I don't typically go too much past that, but I've gotten to a fitness point where I can choose to do a brown level workout whenever I want. And it's not because the programming isn't good enough or bad enough. It has nothing to do with the programming. It has to do with my intention. I do the work. I pay attention to the coaches. I listen when they give me feedback. I implement it. And then I always do some work on my own because it matters to me. Today we had chest to bars, box step-ups, and dumbbell snatches. I remember during the Open a few months ago, it was the first time I ever did chest to bars in a workout. Today, I was doing chest to sternum. I was getting up there, and I was stringing them together 6 at a time, almost 8 at a time. And it's not because the programming is better or worse. It's not because, of anything other than I've been working at it. I've been trying to get better and working to get better, so I've been getting better.
You know what we might call that? We might call that Frankie being a double loop thinker. So there's a psychological and educational professor, Chris Argyris. He teaches at Harvard University, and he has a book called Teaching Smart People How to Learn. And he breaks people down into two concepts. You're either a single loop learner or thinker, or a double loop learner or thinker. A single loop learner, those are your people who are saying, I hate my job because my boss is difficult. I hate this CrossFit gym because the programming is wrong. It's something outside yourself that is a problem. Whereas a double loop learner might say, this program isn't right for me because it doesn't have enough, whatever, upper body pulling strength. So I'm going to use what it does have, and I'm going to now internalize and say, what can I bring to fill that gap? Right? There's never the perfect programming that's going to make every athlete happy. You guys have shared that before. But there's enough of a framework in any of the programming that if you reach inside and find your personal intention and how to fill the gap or the perceived or real gap, that can bring it home. And that's a really powerful thing, part of that growth mindset of not what is wrong outside my personal bubble that should be fixed, but how can I also actively fix it?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of reminds me, like I say a lot, the reason why I grow and the reason why I get better at things is not because I'm a good leader, it's because I'm a good follower, right? I tell my daughters all the time, it's not about your teacher. It's about the learner. It's about you wanting to learn, not about what your teacher is actually teaching. Your teacher may show you certain things and you'll get 10%, 15% of the information. But if you really want to learn something, you're going to go out and find that information. Keith will do a demo in one of the workouts, or Lauren will do a demo in one of the workouts over in Groveland, or Gabriel over in Afterburn. And I'll look at that and I'll say, wow, that was pretty cool. I like that. I might implement that. But I'm going to go afterwards and I'm going to search YouTube and Google and the Knowledge app that we use. And I'm going to find a way to realize why that worked well. Why was it a good cue? What helped me learn about that? I'm never going to know enough. But no one's telling me to do that.
Right.
There's an instinct of learning that I have that I want to grow. And it's the same with everything. I mean, there is no end to this, right? We always talk about RX and scaled and whatnot. And recently I've fallen in love with gymnastics because gymnastics doesn't have an RX. There's just always making it harder. There's always creating some form of an obstacle to make it more difficult to continue to grow. And I love that idea. I think going back to our original topic, which is the ideal athlete, the ideal athlete is that one who comes in with the intention of always wanting to learn, always wanting to grow, always wanting to be the best version of themselves with no obstacles. I know that's a big ask, right?
It is a big ask, and
But we have a few of them.
some of our athletes, I think, want that for themselves. They want to get better and they want to add intensity through weight load. You see that a lot. You guys have touched on your podcast here several times about athletes repetitively doing black level, black level, black level because they want that intensity. So, in terms of an ideal athlete, I wish I could teach them what intensity really means, right? It's not just adding load to the bar. Intensity is the whole equation of force times distance over time. So yeah, force, you've got the load on the bar, but you can take the load on the bar down and increase your distance, which would be reps in this application. And you're still going to get that intensity, but you're going to practice it with better technique because you're not at the highest end of your personal strength capabilities. You're going to refine your technique, and ultimately you're going to stay safer longer and work harder in the sport as a result. And so I do think a lot of our athletes do hone in on that. You've got some of them who are like, I'm just here to maintain, which is super cool. Get to a point in our life where as long as we're still moving and taking that functional capability into our golden years, then that's a beautiful thing. But for those of you still growing and aspiring to be something, I would really love to just remind you that intensity is not just executed by putting more weight on the bar.
Well, I think, and I talk about this a lot when I refer to the theoretical hierarchy pyramid, right? The base of everything is nutrition. And at the top of everything, the least important is sport. But if we think about how human beings are naturally, right? We want to play sports and lift heavy weights, the top two.
Those are fun.
It's almost like the pyramid's upside down because the last thing anybody wants to worry about is their nutrition, right? But I mean, you can apply that intensity to almost anything, right? I mean, I've been doing it with my nutrition recently. I've applied intensity to my nutrition. I've little by little gotten better at understanding my macros and understanding what I'm feeding myself. I've started to learn more about the necessity of certain food groups versus others. And I've started to dial that into now where I've got the technique down. I'm starting to build the intensity and eat more of those good foods and less of those bad ones. And like I was messaging Macy earlier today, my most recent in-body scan, because I'm at my lowest body fat percentage now. And it's right? Yeah, but I mean, it's one of those things where I've learned to adapt that pyramid to everything in my life, not just the hour of my gym time. And I've learned to adapt that mechanics and technique over intensity and volume. And now being able to apply that to nutrition is so fundamental. When we went to the affiliate summit a couple weekends ago, we learned how crucial nutrition is to implement in the gym, because a lot of the athletes will come up to us and say, I'm not getting stronger. This programming really isn't working for me. And all you have to say is, how's your diet?
I mean, yeah, like it's true that we get 1 hour out of their 24 hours,
Yeah.
and we'll try to do the best we can in that hour. We bring world-class experience, but there's still 23 more hours left in the day.
I mean, and there's so much involved in that, Is your sleep the best sleep it can be? Are you getting restful sleep in order to dial in your recovery for the next day? Are you working out with the intention of getting better for tomorrow versus just doing the best you can today? Madison, my 9-year-old, told me and my wife yesterday, you know what? I think I'm not going to work out on Friday. I have a competition on Saturday. I don't want to be sore. I don't want to be tired. I want to rest on Friday. And I said, are you sure you're still 9? Is this really a thing? Like, where are you learning all this from? Clearly she's learning it from me, but she's paying attention, and more importantly than me being a good role model or example, she's being a good learner. She is learning from me. This kid is 9 years old and regularly walks up to us and says, hey, I'm hungry. What has protein? She doesn't know what protein is, but she knows that she requires that to perform better.
That's amazing. I mean, look at our own lives. I couldn't have told you that at 9. I wasn't paying attention to that at 18.
I didn't know that last year. But it's like it's that intention from the learner that is really important. You know, when you come to the gym and your intention is to grow as a human, to grow as a person, to be the best version of yourself, be open. Pay attention to the coach, listen to the coach, and a lot of times the coaches will be vulnerable. You know, G6 does this a lot over in Afterburn, and he'll say, you know, I forgot how to say this. Can you help me? Or, you know, I forgot what this is called, or I forgot what this does. You know, that's intentional. He's willing to say, you know, I don't know everything, or I don't understand this, and can someone help me? He understands that he doesn't know it all, which is a thing. You know, when you come in as a coach and you don't have that vulnerability, or you come in with an athlete and as an athlete and you don't have that vulnerability, it's the same token, right? Um, so yeah, I mean, it's beautiful to see when an athlete is that way, and I think it goes such a long way for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's so many components already of that ideal athlete. They've got the etiquette, they've got the manners, they're warm and welcoming to other people. They recognize we're trying to build a community here. They value our input. They're coachable. They're reaching inside to figure out how they can bring more to the table, to their own experience. Maybe that means they're helping with events so that the events run well. Maybe they're making suggestions for events. Maybe they're being humble. Maybe they're asking for help. Already, that's so many things going in there. And you know, you were talking about the hierarchy, and I kind of wish I could send a little picture of it right now to all of your listeners, where you've got the nutrition at the bottom, and then the very next thing is that metabolic conditioning.
I hate running.
Well, how many times have you heard someone say, this isn't CrossFit? We haven't done CrossFit workout in a while.
I have a simple answer for that. What is CrossFit?
Precisely, right? Like, but different people think it means different things. And
I'll ask you a quick question.
yeah,
As a coach, have you asked this in one of your classes? Because I did this recently.
have I asked what is CrossFit? No, but I kind of want to
I
now.
highly recommend
Should
it.
we not give them the answer here so we can hear it in
No.
class?
We can give them the answer here. That'll be a leg up to those who listen to the podcast. But I did this at my 9 a.m. class a couple days ago. You know, I as they were warming up, I asked them genuinely, you know, what is CrossFit? And you're gonna get all kinds of answers, which is a beautiful thing because it took me immediately back to my level 1 when Melissa Reed, who was the red shirt at my level 1, said to all the coaches there, what is CrossFit? And we all answered what CrossFit is to us. Before she gave us the technical definition, she listened to every single one of us, and to every single person, CrossFit is a different thing. You know, my answer has always been the same. It's mental health to get your body fit. Some people tell you, oh, CrossFit is moving your body at different speeds, different times, carrying different weights. That's kind of close, right? Some people say it's not running. you know, everybody has a different definition.
By the way,
of
those
it.
people are wrong.
But what is the definition, Jen?
Well, so it's technically speaking, it's going to be constantly varied, high intensity, functional movement. That's the ultimate crux of it. But diving a little bit deeper, right? Constantly varied means that we're going to be doing weird, quirky gymnastics things. We're going to be incorporating some balancing components. When we do slips, this is the time it makes me laugh the most as a coach. When slips is programmed as accessory. So slips are the scales, L-sits, inversions, planks, and stretching. I usually run it on a clock, some like interval type workout. But it's funny to me because that one is the one I get the most pushback on of this is not CrossFit. And ironically, if you were to follow CrossFit's daily lesson plans or daily workouts of the day, they have that on there fairly regularly because it is a fundamental part of developing your balance, coordination, agility, accuracy.
I love it.
So it's so important in that. And the irony is not lost on me that people are saying, well, that thing that is a fundamental component of CrossFit is not CrossFit.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because not just slips, but accessory work in general is typically the one thing nobody wants to do. And if you've been in one of my classes recently, like I'll tell my class when it's time to do accessory work, you guys know this is where the real magic happens. This is where the real work is done. And I'll demo it for them and I'll show them how to do it. but that's really where the adaptations take place. And I read it recently on our Level Method Facebook group, where I forget what I was searching, but it came up and it said, for those athletes who are constantly telling you they're not getting better, they're not getting stronger, they're not getting faster, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we have now included accessory work in all of our programming, which apparently wasn't there before. Now they're including it so that the athletes can do this after class or with the remaining time of class, because this is really where the work happens. And it is funny. Most of the athletes don't want to do that, right? Because we don't consider that fun. The fun stuff is throwing 400 pounds on a barbell and deadlifting it one time, right? The not fun stuff is deadlifting 225, 21, 15, and 9.
Oh, you know what's really not fun? Halting deadlifts. That was something we experimented with in a weightlifting club the other day. That was new to me. Yeah, that lit me on fire.
Yeah, I mean, I tell a lot of my athletes the same thing. If you ever take the L1, which I highly recommend you do, you don't touch weights.
You don't need
You
to.
touch PVC pipes, and the time under tension that you spend in positions and working on shapes, you're going to go home sore.
Yeah, holding those isometric holds for as long as you do and getting the positioning right really develops those neurological pathways as well as the muscles to do it. So if you can't hold the position well, how are you going to hit that position well while you're trying to quickly move through it? So we have to build that up. And it's been such a beautiful experience being a coach here, because I remember the first time you asked someone to hold something for like 10 seconds, they're freaking out. Like, what are you doing? You forgot about me. No, this is the point. We're doing this on purpose. And sometimes I do forget about you. I love you guys. Sorry about that.
But it fits into the plan.
But it's so good for you.
Well, I mean, again, it goes back to us talking about what we want to see in our athletes, right? It is fun to come in and do what you want to do. It's also fun to come in and see you get better. When I started coaching at Afterburn, I noticed that anytime there was pull-ups involved, all the bands came out. It was the green bands, the blue bands. It was
A rainbow assortment
three
of bands.
Well, I can't do this. I can't do this. Okay, I understand. What are you doing to get better so that you can do this? What are you working on outside of class to help you get your pull-ups? So I started implementing things over there that a lot of athletes never did before I got there for some reason. Anytime there's dips, same thing. They'll take their band, put it on the rings, and now they're doing dips with the band. 6-8 months in, you're still not doing ring dips. 6-8 months in, you're still not doing pull-ups. I think doing negatives is one of those things that I always knew worked well, but what really cemented it for me was listening to Matt Fraser's HWPO book and him talking about how anytime he struggled with a movement, he went straight to negatives. And he would do those negatives 4 or 5 days a week to really build the strength. Anytime you're taking your muscles through that eccentric elongation and taking the time to build the strength, it's going to help you get stronger. It's going to
There
get
is
you
no
those
doubt about
movements.
that. There's no doubt about that. It's very hard to work the negatives into a workout type environment because everyone's too concerned or at least somewhat concerned about that leaderboard result. So it's going to take longer to do those movements, but those are the movements that get you the results you're looking for. But I will say some of our athletes aren't looking for those results, right? Some people don't care if they're not going to do a unbanded strict pull-up. Some people don't care if they're ever going to master the ring dip. And I'm okay with that as long as they're maintaining that workout capacity where they've got their mechanics and then the consistency and then the intensity. As long as we can experiment with what their intensity looks like. If they can't get the unsupported movement, are we doing a variation of it?
Let me ask you a question about that now that you bring up the athlete who doesn't want to get that, right? So if you have an athlete, I'm going to use a very difficult movement, bar muscle up.
Okay.
You have an athlete who says, you know what, I don't care to ever get a bar muscle up, right? But then they go and they grab a band and they're doing bar muscle ups with a band. Does that make sense to you?
It does not make sense to me.
'Cause
So
if
if they have
says-
no interest, why would they do it?
Exactly.
Is this a real life scenario?
If
for
someone
you?
says, Not exactly, but I have similar scenarios. If someone says to you, you know, it's not a goal for me to be able to do a bar muscle up, I'm going to stick with doing chin ups or with doing pull ups, and I say, okay, well, just go ahead and do them with a 3 second negative, and they're doing it. That makes perfect sense to me. I understand that. You want to be strong, you want to get stronger, you pull up, or even weighted pull ups. Cool. The bar muscle up is not something that is a goal for you, and that's perfectly understandable. You don't have to want to do a bar muscle up. But if you have someone who's like, oh, well, you know, it's not a goal for me to be able to do, you know, 10 unbroken pull ups or whatever, and then they're trying to do pull ups in the workout with a band, there's a disconnect there.
True.
There's a misunderstanding of what their goal is and what they're saying their goal is. Um, you know, the band is one of those things that can help you in certain aspects. But if all you ever do is use the band, then you're just going to get really good at bouncing up and down
Yeah.
on the rig, which is why my daughter Madison loves doing banded pull ups. It's
But
fun.
but to that point too, though, constantly varied. It's right in the definition of CrossFit. So whatever that thing is, whether it's negatives or banded pull-ups, if you only ever do the one version of it, you're missing out on a lot. Maybe we need to throw in some bend over rows there. Maybe it's a tricep deficiency and you need to do some skull crushers. I mean, there's lots of ways to go
Right.
with that. And that's one thing I always promote to my athletes is whatever you did last time, we're not scaling it that way again today. Try to keep it shifting because even the people who don't think they want it, I want it for them because I know that when they get it, I've seen it. People who thought they didn't care, they're just like, I just want to be fit. I want to be able to play with my kids. That's the most important why for me. This is why I do it. But then they get something that they couldn't get before,
Yeah.
and it lights up the whole room. And I want that moment for them. So I guess that's another thing I would want the ideal athlete to know that we're never giving up on these goals because I want you to constantly push your boundaries of what you believe you are capable of. It is so empowering inside and outside the gym.
Yeah, and I mean, it goes back to something me and Keith suggest all the time on the podcast, which is we're here for you. Come to us. You know, hey, coach, last week you had me doing seated negatives. What can I try differently this week? Or, you know, hey, coach, last week I went for this. Is there something different that I can work on this week? You know, hey, you did, you know, seated negatives. Let's do some really difficult ring rows at a slow tempo, or even raised or elevated ring rows, right? And get yourself more vertical or horizontal. Yeah, more horizontal.
Horizontal.
Wrong pattern. But yeah, there's always a way to shift things around. I've been following an Instagram account recently that has what is CrossFit. I'm not sure what the name is, but they're always putting like what is CrossFit, and then they'll show you one movement with multiple variations of it. And it's so cool because they'll have like handstand push-ups. They'll have somebody doing a handstand push-up, then right next to it is that person doing a handstand push-up piked off a box. Then they'll have the next person doing handstand push-ups to the pike to the ground. Then they'll have the next person doing standard push-ups. Then they'll have another person doing seated presses with dumbbells, and it's like every single one of these is CrossFit. And I love it. You know, the one that I saw today was box jumps. This is a box jump to a 24-inch box. This is a box jump to a 16-inch box. This is a box step up. This is a box step up to plates. You know, every single one of these is CrossFit. Why? Because it allows you to constantly vary. It allows you to do functional movement and get better at something. You know, some people don't know that they can just practice box jumps by standing up and down on their stairs. They can just get up and down on the stairs over and over again, and they'll get better. You know, to them, that's not CrossFit. You gotta sweat. You gotta get a PR. You gotta ring the bell. You gotta die on the floor in front of the fan. That's CrossFit. And it's you know, it all is. It all is. But at the end of the day, we want you to get better, not just do the thing today.
And that's a good point too. Like we want you to get better. Like that's the goal is to improve your fitness, to improve your ability to do things, to move your body well, to improve that movement pattern, to move loads, to move yourself faster, to move yourself with load faster, all the things to get them a little bit better over time. And never to give up on that, because those external forces, the things that are difficult, that's where the gains really come from. So pushing yourself both physically and psychologically outside of your body's comfort zone, that's where the magic actually happens. And so if you come in and you regularly are like, well, I always do yellow. I always do yellow. I always do yellow. Okay, but what if you do yellow with a splash of orange?
With a splash. I like that. Little sprinkle.
Like, what if you can do yellow, but that movement in orange is in your skill set? Let's incorporate that. All right, what if you can do blue today, but maybe just this one movement you have to do it at yellow? So we want to keep challenging and raising the bar of expectation for yourself always.
It's funny you mentioned that. So today I took the 8:30 class at Claremont, and Coach Clint was coaching, which great job, Clint. Super fun class. He asked a question, and the question was, today we have deadlifts. Isn't everybody's favorite movement the deadlift? And the first thing I immediately thought was, no. Why would that be my favorite movement? I'm good at that.
Ooh.
What is your favorite movement?
I don't know that I have one, but I always make the joke that it's the bench press, because how else do I get to exercise while laying down? But I don't know that I really have a true favorite movement.
I've acquired a few different movements over the past few months, and they wouldn't be the favorite movements you would consider, right? You would probably think my favorite movement is the bench press or a strict press, because they're two of my better ones, but my favorite movements have been the double under, the burpee, and the assault bike. My three worst.
All right, you'll never get me to say my favorite is the assault bike. No matter how much growth mindset I try to adapt my lifestyle to, I can't do that one.
You know, it's my three worst movements, and I love practicing those three movements that I'm not good at.
You know, it's funny because I won't say it's my favorite. I think that word makes it sound like I get a true, like, joy from it. But when I look at a workout that has ring dips or some kind of ring work in it, that's the day where I'm like, ooh, I can't miss that. I don't know whether I really like it.
Is it one of your weaker ones?
It is one of my weakest ones. If you look at my level method assessment, it is by far significantly lower than every other assessment. But
What
I
are
am
you on
actively
that,
working. I
Are you
am.
like a brown on ring dips?
I wish. But I am actively working on it because it means something to me to be well-rounded. That's another thing I haven't really touched on with the ideal athlete. The ideal athlete knows their color levels for every one of their 15 fitness components. They've tested it.
I don't know all 15 of my colors.
Oh, let's get on it. After this podcast, we're throwing down, Frankie.
I know my two worst ones.
Oh, but you have them all. Like, you don't.
Oh, yes. I get what you're saying.
So, okay. So I don't remember any of these things. I have to look it up. But I think there's a lot of value in making that assessment, right? If we're being a double loop learner and we're recognizing what we're not bringing to the table, that is a fantastic place to start. Get your assessments in, figure out where your holes in your game are. Start cherry picking those lowest of your assessment levels and working on them and pushing your boundaries on that.
I wish we had a nutrition color.
Ooh.
Wouldn't that be
We
cool?
do. It's called the InBody. Let's set it up that way. Like the body fat percentage, we'll put it white to yellow all the way up to
Well,
red.
it's funny you mentioned that. So the Chalk It Pro app does have an area where you can input your skeletal muscle mass, your body fat percentage. So if any of the athletes come to us and do the InBody scan, they can input that information into the app and keep track of it, which is, I think, just as important as the colors.
I think so too. I mean, like once you find that healthy range for your body fat, it becomes the new game to stay in it.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of overall health and longevity, we have the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum, right? And for those that don't know, and I think Keith and I have talked about this in the past, but the sickness, wellness, fitness continuum is almost like a meter that goes like a gauge that goes from left to right and tells you your ability to fight disease, chronic illness, etc. Level Method has their own version of this, and the ideal athlete for them, for their programming, is not the 1% CrossFit Games athlete who's black, red, or brown level. The ideal athlete for them is that blue purple. So if you come to the gym and you start with us, you do your foundations, let's say you're white, yellow, great. Within 3 to 6 months, you're going to start seeing orange levels for your fitness. Within the year, you should be able to start hitting blues, right? That's where we want you to be. We want you to be able to come in on a daily basis, do blue purple workouts, go home, sleep well, recover, feel great, and then come back the next day. And I can tell you, for me, doing just level method, not doing any of the plethora of other, workout regimens out there, that's exactly where I'm at, and I feel better than I've ever felt.
I love what you said though, like that it will happen over time. Now, you said maybe 3 months, 6 months down the road. I don't like to put a time stamp on it personally because it's going to look and feel different, like you talked about before,
Right.
depending on their nutrition, their sleep, their recovery, all the other components that go into it. But what I would caution someone if they really want to see those gains is to not do it overnight. I watched a coach last night who was delivering valuable and precise information to an athlete. This workout was the Kalsu partner workout. So you had 5 burpee buy-in, and then the remainder of the minute you had some thrusters to share with your friend until you hit a cumulative 150 thrusters. Now there's a certain amount of time we want those burpees done in, right? If you're taking 40 seconds to do those burpees and you only have 20 to do some thrusters, you're going to be there all day. That's not the point of the workout.
Yeah.
And Coach Keith pointed out, he's like, hey, I want you to do 3 burpees instead of 5, right? That was the smart move as the coach to keep them in the operational intensity domain for that workout. And the athlete just kept doing 5.
They
And
did not want to do thrusters.
that's one way of looking at it. Maybe this poor soul was just avoiding the thrusters, but it was more a matter of because that's what the screen said to do, right? The screen for the color that this athlete wanted to be because he's hyped up by his friends in the community, and that's what all these other people are doing. I think it's just as important to recognize when you're not there. Take some time. Build to that thing. Follow what the coach is saying so that you get the right intensity so you're better prepared for the next workout and better. Basically, poor guy probably spent 20 minutes doing burpees.
You and Brandon said it to me the first day I walked in just to get information about the gym. Check your ego at the door. If you can check your ego at the door, you're going to see results like no one else. And for me, it's easier than it is for other people. I've never really had an ego. But it's just that, I have no issue stepping into a workout and doing a yellow level. It doesn't faze me one bit when the person next to me says, well, you're a general manager. You have to at least do brown. I'm sorry. Is there a rule book? That's not part of my contract.
And honestly,
Noble's not paying me. Neither's Reebok.
I think the contract just says we have to do a couple workouts a week with our community. Didn't
I
say
mean-
what color it had to be.
Scaling is your friend. And this is one of the things that the Buttery Bros on YouTube do a lot, which I love because they are a big voice in the CrossFit community. They're a couple cool guys who used to be CrossFit media staff, and now they just do videos on their own. But they're getting to a point where, they're a little bit older. They're working out a lot with professional athletes. They know they can't hang with those professional athletes, so they scale. There's nothing wrong with that. They're perfectly fit. They look great. They have fun. They do all the same intensity and volume for their level.
Yeah, that's that beautiful thing for their level. We've got such a powerful system here that I think is underutilized by a lot of our athletes. It's included in your membership, the whole level method, tracking, assessment. And when you use Chalk It Pro well, and I try to do a little teaching segment every time we do assessment so everybody knows and we go through it in foundations. But when you look at your daily workout, for anybody who doesn't know this, this is golden right here. When you pull up today's workout, you're going to see a little rectangle that says in different colors, maybe neurological and core, if there's jump rope or sit-ups in it, maybe squat endurance, if we've got goblet squats or something. The color that's lit up is your color that you have input into the app for your level method assessment. So every day the app is telling you, you know what, Frankie, under ideal conditions, you should do brown for this workout. It's very helpful to know. If you don't have your assessment in there, it just assumes your white level and it tells you to do white level. So one, it's giving you feedback and saying this is where your fitness level is at, but it only works if you keep it updated. If you level up, if you level down, you should keep that updated. And I'll make jokes about that regularly, like, ooh, I leveled down 2 levels today. Because maybe that day I was not as well rested as I was last time I did the test, or maybe my focus has shifted and I'm working way more on rings now, and I'm definitely not spending enough time with some other ones of my lower awesomeness levels. But your priorities shift over time, and that is okay. There is no shame in leveling down. I'm leveling up in other areas. There's still balance until I can achieve that overall consistency across the board, because that's my goal, is to be as well-rounded as possible. So in that regard, you've got to put your levels in order for it to give you the appropriate feedback. And anybody who's not doing that, you're kind of shortchanging yourself a little bit there.
Well, absolutely. On top of everything, right, we pay for these memberships. They're not inexpensive, so to speak. It's an investment in yourself, not just the hour of the gym, but these apps are actually really powerful. They give us great data, great tools. If you're not using the app, you're kind of missing out.
100%.
Right?
I genuinely would not know what to put on the bar without the app, right? Like deadlifts yesterday. All right, so we're going to do 3. I don't remember what I did for 3 reps last time. Maybe I remember my 1 rep max of all time, right? Like that number sticks in your mind. But a set of 3 or 5 or 7, there's no way you're going to remember that. So, and I say this to athletes a lot, you've got to be able to build your confidence going up to that barbell. If there's 200 pounds on there and you're like, oh, that's a lot of weight, you're going to be less likely to hit that lift. But if you walk up to that barbell like, yeah, 200 pounds, I got that for a set of 3 last time, it changes your entire approach and you're going to be more likely to get it. So you've got those psychological barriers you have to overcome. So knowing what to put on the bar and then letting it give you the confidence of what to put on the bar. And Chalk It Pro is super cool. You look at deadlifts, there's a little button that looks like a time clock. You hit that, it pulls up every deadlift you've ever input in the app. Your 1 rep, 3 rep, 10 rep, all the things you've put in.
It also gives you percentages. You can actually click on the deadlift and it'll show you what your 60%, 65%, 70, 80, 85%, etc., which is really, really cool because, again, I told you yesterday during weightlifting, I don't want to do math. Who's got time for that stuff? But if you go into it and you click on percentages, it'll show you what your percentages are, and you can just go for those. They may be too precise, right? Like nobody's going to put 273 pounds, right? You can go for 275 or 270. And again, you don't have to do that work. It's a tool we have. We should use it for everything it's worth. So, yeah, Ideal Athlete, I know you're out there. Use your app. Use your app. Wow, we've covered a lot.
We have. There's a lot that goes into doing this. Even for the fun of it or the sport of it, there's still a lot that, we can all motivate each other to be more ideal.
I'll throw one question at you. Maybe you want to do this, maybe you don't, but without knocking anyone else, shout out the name of one ideal athlete at your gym.
I think just because I just spoke to her this morning, I'm going to go with Christy. She's fresh in my mind. She puts in the work. She's identified her passion for the sport. And this is important no matter what your passion is, whether it's maintaining your functionality or being a competitive athlete. You kind of have to know what you're aiming for. Christy knows. She knows that she enjoys being out there on the competition floor. She knows that she wants to put in the work to help her gain the skills that she recognizes she's lacking in comparison to her peers. And like any good athlete, she's also aware that her mindset has room for improvement. And when it's happening, she takes a step back and says, okay, I got to get my head right here. And that's powerful. That's so powerful.
I love Christy. She was part of my team for my first competition, so I agree 1,000% with everything you're saying. I will throw one name in here as well, and this is kind of cheating because I recently made him a coach at our gym, but I'm gonna use Jason Roman from Afterburn. He is not just the ideal athlete; he's just an ideal human being. He has been such a great influence, such a great voice, such a great leader in our gym. The gym's culture has changed. As much as I've had influence on that, so has he. His presence, his attitude, his ability to get people together, and anytime you're in a class with Jason, you're gonna be in the best class. It's phenomenal. He challenges himself, he challenges those around him, but he also knows how to say, hey, listen, today may not be the best. Why don't you take a little bit of weight off? Take care of yourself. He started coaching for us, and he's doing foundations. Everyone who's doing foundations with him loves him. Of course they do. He's amazing. So definitely a great person to have around. We're so grateful for you, Jason. And again, we didn't know that he had his level 1 certification when he joined the gym. He just came in, a nice big slice of humble pie, comes in, he's super coachable, and he gets along with everyone. I mean, couldn't ask for more. Couldn't ask for more. If anybody wants to know who to be like, that's who you want to be like.
I think there's a lot of people, though. Like, a lot of people in Claremont come to mind for that same regard, but I get that luxury of working at 2 gyms, right? So I get to go over to Groveland fairly regularly as well. A lot of people over there do the same thing, but talking about new up-and-coming people on our staff, kind of have to shout out Alex Camacho over there. He used to be a member at Claremont ages ago, and he's one of those people who have a great quality of movement, but still remains coachable. He wants to hear the feedback. He'll thank you when you say something in a way he hasn't quite heard before and it resonates with him. So he's a great human being. He got absorbed right into the culture over there, but I think you could put him in any culture and he would just make friends in a heartbeat. Super personable. And in terms of both being better as an athlete, taking some playful feedback, I teased him a bit. We had the coaches development meeting this weekend. He's not even really officially on the staff at that point, but he came to the coaches development meeting because he's hungry to learn more. As both an athlete and a coach, he's like, let's do this thing. I'm ready to learn. And I did tease him a bit because he just threw down hard at ACC. I mean, he took 3rd place, and that's an impressive competition to wind up on the podium. And then he again signed up for a beginner division at an upcoming comp, and I'm like, no. You just got 3rd place. You don't at ACC. You don't get to do that. And I was teasing for the most part, but it motivated him enough to pick up his phone right then and there, contact his partner and say, no, like, we really need to step it up. And that really was the right choice for him. This was not like aggressive peer pressure. This really was. He was ready for the next challenge, and he embraced that challenge. Changed his division right there on his phone before we were even out of the coaches development meeting. So that was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, I have to agree. I just met him this past weekend during that coaches development, and I coached it, and it was the first time I had really gotten a chance to work with him because I met him at ACC in passing. So working with him and telling him a couple corrections here and there on the deadlift, and he immediately said thank you and corrected it. And I mean, he was just fantastic. He really was fantastic. And he may have just been doing it to impress me, but
no, he's just a great human being.
I think from everything I've heard, it just seems like that's who he is, which is a beautiful thing. And that's why we want him to be part of our culture.
100%.
Yeah. All right, Jen, I think this has been a hell of a talk. We're approaching an hour.
I could talk about the ideal athletes all day.
I guess I could too. No, I don't want to. All right, this is it for this one. Real quick, we'll talk about the Sweat Factory Summer Games. If you've listened this far, thank you for sticking around. Make sure you sign up for the Summer Games. They'll be on July, I want to say 18, 27, and August 1st. I'm throwing those right off the top of my head. If they're wrong, don't hold me to them. But those will be the 3 days that we're going to throw down in our respective gyms. Color levels will be yellow, orange, blue, and brown. Then the top 5 athletes across the 3 gyms in those colors for both male and female. We'll throw down in Groveland on August 17th. We're going to have a huge partner WOD for everybody who wants to come and cheer on their friends. And then immediately after that, we'll have the competition throw down. It's going to be so much fun. We're going to have hopefully 1,000 people sign up.
That's the
what
goal.
we're going for. That's what we're going for. I know I'm peer pressuring everybody at my gym to sign up. I don't know if they're doing it yet, but doing my best to get everybody to sign up. I'm excited for this. We've been trying to do this since the open and get the three gyms to throw down. And obviously we, as general managers, want bragging rights. we want bragging rights. I don't want Clinton bragging to me. So any other announcements you want to shout out? Rex Rumble this weekend. We've got a few athletes going from each of the gyms. I know from Afterburn, Coach Yoli is going with Christy from Claremont. I know that I think Tiffany is going. I forget who she's competing with. Forgive me. I have Kiara going both days. She's going to be going as individual and as team on
that's
Sunday,
fun.
which is wow. My daughter Maddie's going. I'm excited for her. And then we've got a whole bunch of other athletes coming from Claremont.
Yeah, so from Groveland, I only know of one team out there. Alex, he's stepping up again. Alex is throwing down with Jonathan Otero. That's going to be a heck of a team. I can't wait to see them.
Yep.
Them putting in the work. Then Claremont has a big representation, like you said. We've got Maddie there on Saturday in the individual division. And we've also got Chase in the individual division. So we got 2 kids out throwing down.
This is Chase's first, right?
As far as I know, yeah, this is his first time throwing down, and
Exciting.
Chase is 8 years old, so he's caught the CrossFit bug. He's drank the Kool-Aid. He's all in. Then we got a lot of coach athlete mashups. This is a fun challenge I threw out there to the coaches, and so you've got Keith, who's partnered up with Rowan. I'm partnered up with Eliana. Go partner, best partner ever. Then we've got Clint with Barry. Oof. We've got Coach Valerie over from Groveland paired up with Heather here at Claremont. I feel like I'm missing more people, though. There's more.
Is More Gaines competing?
No, but she is on banana bread support.
Nice. Pulling her weight one way or the other.
Yeah. Pushing my weight is more like what she's been doing.
All right, Jen, thank you so much for joining me on this one. Thank you to all the athletes. Remember, we want you to get fitter, get happier, and stay healthier. Take care.
Bye.